10 common gardening mistakes that beginner gardeners make in the month of May. The first mistake is to not harden off any plants that have been grown previously under protection or inside somewhere. And for some reason, no one ever really talks about this. So, what is hardening off? What's going to happen when you don't do it? It's not good news. If you've grown some bedding plants on your windowsill, or purchased some bedding plants or young vegetable plants from your garden centre that have been grown under the protection of a glass house or a higher canopy, these are known as being grown soft. And they are soft because they have not been exposed to the ultraviolet light that they would receive if placed in a position where they receive sunlight directly from the sun. And you might think, well, that doesn't sound right. Well, let me explain, because you actually already know all about this. Have you heard of sunburn? Have you heard of sunburn? Yes, you have heard of sunburn. It's when you go outside in full sun after not being so with your lovely white skin, and your skin can't take it because it's not used to the high levels of ultraviolet light. You need to build up your levels of melanin in your skin, and then that will protect you from burns from the sun. And it's the same with plants. Well, slightly differently. They need to build up certain pigments that protect the chlorophyll in the leaf, increase the waxiness of the leaf. That leaf will be a bit more stocky, a bit tougher, and then it will be able to protect itself from the ultraviolet light. So you need to build up your plant's leaves' resistance to the ultraviolet light from the sun. This is known as hardening off. So how do we do that? You take your plants, you place them outside, and you place them, that's right, in the shade. You don't put them in full sun. Start them off in heavy shade, and every day that goes past, you give them a little bit more sunlight, but you're only giving them a little bit more early morning light or late afternoon, evening light. Bit by bit, day by day, you increase the amount of light that they receive, and over a period of 7 to 10 days, your plants should be hardened off to the conditions of being in full sun, and then they can be planted outside into their final position. So there you go. Plants start off soft. If they're grown in protection, you need to harden them off. It takes 7 to 10 days. Start them off in the shade, build up incrementally the amount of sun they receive. Bob's your uncle, job done. You've cracked it. There you go. Mistake number 1. You knew about it anyway. Good, you're still here. I've been a bit mischievous, and I'm going to set you a challenge. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a plant, but the video clip that's going to come up isn't going to be that plant, it's going to be a different plant. So you have a challenge. Your challenge is to spot where I've deliberately identified the wrong plant, put that in the comments, stick a timestamp on it. If you know the name of the plant that I'm actually got in a video, then well done you are actually quite good. So this is a challenge. Can you spot it? If you can, I will give you a little bit more respect. More respect, that's what people want. Right, I'm busy reading my book. Now get on with it. Mistake number 2 is to do with planting out in May. You may have think we just covered that earlier, but no, this is another thing. In the UK, we suffer threats from late frosts in this country, and generally we are always at risk right up until the end of May. In fact, there is a saying, don't plant something about something, get a clout around the ear. Something like that. I can't remember. I did just write it in the thing. So be very careful when you're growing tender plants. So these are all plants that cannot tolerate being frosted. So they're not hardy plants. These are half hardy or tender plants. Keep an eye on your overnight temperatures. If they start to dip below about 5-6 degrees, then there is a big risk of frost. And those tender plants that you put outside and planted, they are at risk of being killed off should they get hit by a frost. So you may need to think about, should these plants be planted outside yet? Right here on the south coast of England, you might be able to get away with it, but I guarantee the further north you go, the bigger that risk of late frost is. We always get it in the UK. We always get it. You might not get it where you live, but we do, because we live in a stupid country. But there you go. Late frost, be aware of it. Keep an eye on your overnight temperatures on your weather forecast. Not that they are remotely reliable. They're all hopeless. There isn't a single person out there who can give me a decent weather thing. Weather forecast. That's the thing. So take note, be aware, identify the plants that are at risk, and if that cold weather comes, have a management plan in place to get them out and under protection. Mistake number 3 is you, and particularly you over there, killing your plant with kindness. And when I mean kindness, I mean too much fertilizer, obviously. For some reason, people get very excited with their new plants. They put them in the garden. They go, oh, can't wait for that to grow, and put some flowers on. What I do, I'll give it a little feed. And I'll start feeding it every day, a bit more feed. And for some reason, your plant starts to die off. Well, that's because too much fertilizer in the soil will burn the roots. The roots will die. The plant will start to wilt because it's got no roots that work on it, so it can't take in nutrients, can't take any water, because they also need the roots to bring the water into the plant. So you've got this lovely plant, looked after it, spent a lot of money, all wilting and dying, and then it's dead because you killed it, you put on too much fertilizer. I'm going to give you a rough guide. Fertilize your plants once a fortnight to once a month during the growing period of the year. Outside that, don't even bother. And we can go into more details depending on the plant it is, because some of them require a low nutrient soil because their roots just aren't used, or they haven't evolved to live in a soil that is high in nutrition, like these lovely flipping red hot pokers over there. Absolutely beautiful. Feed these too much and all you're really going to get is a load of foliage growth and very little flowers. Anyway, I've made my point, I've said enough. Don't over fertilize new plants. Mistake number 4 is to not water your container grown plants. And I'm also going to throw in free of charge your flipping hanging baskets. People generally are not aware of how much watering containers and hanging basket requires, especially terracotta containers. It's not as bad with plastic or glazed terracotta because it seals in the water to a certain extent, but concrete, reconstituted stone pots, and your standard unglazed terracotta pots, they are all porous. So when you water your plant, you can lose water through the sides as well as the underneath of the pot. When it's hot, you have a lovely hot day and a bit of a dry wind, you could be watering these plants at least every single day. And when it comes to like a moss-lined hanging baskets, you could be watering these twice a day. That is a lot of watering. You might think that because it's outside, it's fine. It'll get watered by the rain. It's outside with its outside garden plant friends. They're all right, and they're outside. No. Will you listen to yourself? Look, if it's in a container, the only way that's going to get some water really is going to be you watering it. If the foliage of the plant goes beyond the side of the pot, when it rains, it's going to hit the leaves, it's going to roll around the outside, it's not even going to get into the pot. Unless you've got a cord line with its like rosette of leaves that's designed to draw water into the crown of that plant. Mistake number 5 is a foundational basic of gardening, and it is to keep on top of your flipping weeding. I know you don't want to do it because it's a crappy job, but you need to do it, otherwise you'll have more work to do later on. So weeding at this time of year, honestly, it's an absolute bind. But the problem is these annual weeds, they grow so fast from seed and they start flowering and producing their own seed within like a week or so. It's absolutely incredible. You've got to be impressed at how fast these plants can turn around their life cycle. How's it flipping that pigeon? Make sure you get on with it. Remove all these weeds, especially before they start flowering and producing their seed. You let one of these flipping things start chucking seeds around, you haven't just got one plant to worry about, you've probably got like 100 plants to worry about. So bite the bullet, get on your knees, get your trowel out and remove them all. Otherwise, further down the line, you'll have an absolute jungle. And the problem is, not only does it look an absolute state, and I don't like that, it's also going to outcompete many of your ornamental plants, not just for nutrition, but also for water. And let's be honest with you, it hasn't rained since March. So get on with it. Do your weeding. It's a foundational issue with your gardens. I said that at the beginning, but it bears repeating. What are you doing? Bulbs finish flowering, looking ugly. I better chop them down, make the place look tidy. No, this time you're going to have to put up with it. I know I don't like a messy garden like with your weeds, but when it comes to your bulbs, you're going to have to allow these plants to complete their life cycle. Otherwise you won't get the displays you could have had in the spring had you not cut it back. At the moment, once your bulbs have finished flowering, they tend to all die back. I don't mind it if you snap off the seed head, especially tulips because they're quite obvious. Snap those off because that stops the plant diverting energy into producing a seed pod and also the seeds inside. But allow the plant to absorb all the nutrition, starches, sugars that are in the foliage, that are in the leaf stalk, draw them back into the bulb to bulk that bulb up so it's in the best condition it can be for next year's flowering display. You'll probably get almost 30% better blooms. I pulled it out of the air, I don't know what the percentage is, but it is really important. Allow it to do its thing, allow it to die back naturally. Once those leaves are properly brown and dry and horrible, then you can remove them, throw them away, then put them in the bin. But for now, leave them as they are, put up with it, just don't look at it, and you'll thank me when they start flowering again come the following spring. Right, this mistake, you need to use your imagination. Pretend that the soil is nice and moist still from the spring and April rains. It's not, it's dry, but it should be quite damp. And then that the summer is coming and we'll have a period of drought, which we tend to do. Now is an excellent time to put down a mulch on your borders that will help retain moisture in the soil. So you're giving it a layer of protection from the beating heat of our English sun. It is literally like being in the Bahamas here. It's a timely application. If you leave it too late and the soil is already dry, then there's no moisture that you're keeping in, so it just wastes your time. And if you put something down like a good, decent garden compost or a farmyard manure, then if it ever did rain in the summer, it will also wash in nutrition into the soil too. Don't forget, you know, we were talking about weeds earlier. A decent, nice 2 to 3 inch thick mulch also acts as a weed suppression, kind of really only for your annual weeds. Your big perennial weeds will still grow through, but then it'll be easy to see. You either spray it with a weed killer, which we're not allowed to do because it's morally wrong, or dig it up again. But you should have done that when I mentioned about weeds earlier, if you didn't have any weeds in your borders. So there you go, a timely application of a nutritious mulch to help retain moisture in the soils. Saves on your watering bills, huh? That's real money there. Although you would have spent an absolute fortune on your mulches, so it doesn't really work. I just said that to make you sound better. Something that I like to do in the garden, and I'll do it most days, is have a walk around, keep an eye on the plants, make sure they are in a healthy condition. And this is where people make a mistake, where they are not walking around, because at this time of year, you are starting to get a proliferation, I'm not even sure I actually said that correctly, of pests. In particular around here in the United Kingdom, we're starting to see a big increase of the scarlet lily beetle. That's a horrible thing. Good thing about it though is you can actually see it with your own eyes from a distance, so you know you've got an infestation of it. Other one, vine weevil. The Dutch gave us that one because they didn't sterilise their equipment properly. Thank you very much. And what's that other one? Box caterpillar moth. Oh my goodness me. Anyway, aphids. There's a big long list of them. Keep an eye out for them. You'll see it pretty much on the new growth of a lot of your plants, because that's the softest, most delicious part of the plant. And then put in whatever management you want. You can spray them with a decent insecticide that will do the job like this. Be aware, never spray inorganic insecticides on plants when they're in flower or will be in flower within the harvest period of that spray, because then you'll be killing off beneficial insects and pollinators that go and eat that. Or use your organic, or use, spray it with a high pressure hose, not too high you damage the plant, but whatever you need to do to deal with these pests and diseases to stop your plants from being ruined. So there you go. I would advise a minimum of a once a week walk round. Really, every couple of days is what I would do. Mistake number 10, and it's to do with your lawns. Many people like to cut their lawns really short, tight and short, make it as smart as you possibly can. But we're in May, we're going into the summer soon. It's going to be hot, it's going to be dry. It's not going to do your lawns any favours to keep cutting it that close to the ground. It allows the soil to dry out, which means your grass will dry out or go brown, look awful. You did it because you cut your lawn too close to the ground. You need to let it grow a wee bit, not too much. I mean, probably need to cut this now, but it looks okay. But it is quite thick, quite lush. It's going to act a bit like your mulch in maintaining moisture in the ground. If the sun can get to it and dry it out, well, it's going to dry out, look awful. Most of the year, this lawn will look like that, partly because we are prone to waterlogging, so it's always wet anyway. Plus, I'm not going to cut it that flipping low. It's easier to do. Also, when the soil does start to dry out, it gets hard, you don't get a lot of bounce in it, and it increases the risk of scalping with your lawnmower. And that's even worse. It's going to take ages to recover from that if it's dry and you scalped it. Don't do it. Just raise it out one, maybe two, but definitely raise it out one. Make your lawn looking good for as much of the summer as you possibly can. Anyway, those are my 10 mistakes to avoid for garden beginners in May. There are a ton of other mistakes. I said I'm doing 10, done 10. But if you've got some great ones, put that in the comments. That means that other people reading the comments can see it. They can learn from these things. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. But before I go, check out this one. I spent a long time making that. I think it's quite funny.